Welcome to JM&A's Office Hours. I'm super excited to be hosting today's session. My name is Kevin Hall, and I'm the manager of Dealer Talent Services with the JM&A Group. Today we're going to focus on one of the biggest opportunities facing dealers today, which is attracting and retaining women in our industry. The opportunity has never been greater or bigger. Today, the urgency and the importance of attracting women to automotive retailers is super important. So today we're going to focus on really diving into what are some tips and what are some tactics that dealers can do to enhance their opportunities to attract women. And I have two stellar, outstanding business executives with me on the call. Jackie and Barbara are going to be giving us some of their tips and recommendations to help you through this process. Barbara is the director of HR over at the Warren Henry Automotive Group. Now, Warren Henry Automotive consistently ranks as one of the best places to work across auto retail industry. And it also was recognized in 2020 as J.D. Power's Dealer of Excellence. Barbara sits there at the organization as the head of HR, which is responsible for all talent management processes, organizational design, and as well as assists in the corporate strategy. Barbara is a single mother of three, 13, 9, and 6, and we're super excited to have you here today, Barbara.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And now Jackie Dubey is the Senior Vice President of the Predictive Index. Now, the Predictive Index is a leader in talent optimization framework. Jackie leads the HR and people strategy aspect of this fast-growing technology company, and we're super excited to have her as part of our panel today. Welcome, Jackie.
Thanks, Kevin.
Well, before we dive in, let's just set some of the stage. Today, across the U.S., women make up the majority of the U.S. workforce, actually 50.4%. Women also have about 60% of the personal wealth in the U.S. and have 85% of the consumer spending, which are pretty amazing numbers. However, when we look at dealerships today, only 19% of a dealership staff are women, and only 7% are in leadership positions. So there is a tremendous opportunity that we have in front of us today. And Barbara and Jackie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's at stake for our dealers and maybe even some tips that we can provide to them. Barbara, tell us a little bit about what you believe is at stake for our dealers today.
I think for us, as an organization, we know that the automotive industry is at stake here, right? So to your point, Kevin, women have over 85% of the consumer spend. That's a big deal, So for us as an organization, we want to disrupt the industry. We want to empower and bring women into the automotive industry and change the landscape, right? I think for us as individuals, we experience challenges, right, in buying. And ironically enough, I think for us, we've done a really good job, to your point, kind of ranking the top dealerships to work for. Your stat of 7% of women are in leadership roles. Here at Warren Henry, we have over 40% of women in leadership and management roles. We have over 30% of women that are sitting in customer-facing roles. That is sales consultant, F&I, service advisors. That's pretty impressive. And then we have over 60% of women that are really supporting our sales, service, warranty, and parts function. So I think for us, what's at stake here is really the success and development of automotive as a whole. So it's pretty powerful.
Yes, very much so. Jackie, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's proven that diverse teams have more innovative structures and results. And if you're hiring a homogeneous group of people in your organization, you're not going to be disruptive, and you're missing out on that opportunity to get new thinking into your business. And the way that the world is changing, and I'm sure the way that buyers are buying cars is changing. And if you miss that opportunity, you're going to fall behind.
Yeah, very much so. And it's interesting. I know, prior to us taping today, we had some examples and some stories about your buying experience, Jackie, just recently at a dealership. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've actually, my last two buying experiences, my first one, I went by myself, and I ended up leasing a car and ended up in the back office for 2 hours trying to get bought into lots of policies. And I felt very almost like I couldn't leave. So 3 months ago, I went and bought a car, and I felt like I had to take my husband with me. So it wasn't, I felt like I was a little nervous I was going to get bullied into a situation again. And so, if women are, 85% of consumer spend, and they're uncomfortable walking into a dealership, you're missing out on that.
Yeah, very much so. And Barbara, what are some of the things that you at Warren Henry, or some of the initiatives that you're taking to kind of really level set and begin to attract, women into your store? You've done such a great job with the percentages that you mentioned, but what are some of the things that you guys really are focused on over there?
I think for us, it's really about being all inclusive, right? So for us, it's really about bringing everybody to the table. It's about everyone having the best idea. I mean, I'm honestly grateful that I'm able to sit at the table with the executive and leadership team. They empower me as they empower the rest of our leaders and our employees to be able to weigh in. And, to your point, I am a human resources director per se, but I wear so many different hats, and you'll find me in meetings regarding fuel management or, technician, proficiency and efficiency. And that's the beauty of it, right? So our leaders in the different functions and roles, they're not transactional, but they're funneled into their day-to-day, right? So I'm able to bring in this beautiful, landscape of opportunities and just kind of playing off of each other. So I think that we develop our leaders. I think that we allow everyone to kind of come to the fields, right, and weigh in. And our leaders don't see human resources as a transactional item. It really is a strategic business partner, and we're just that much stronger because of it. And again, as we continue to hire and retain people, we are just trying to Jackie's point, to build a diverse group. Not necessarily more women or more of this or that, just diversity as a whole. And, women are part of that.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. One of the things that's interesting to me, and I know I've had a lot of experience in the recruiting side of it, is when you are bringing a diverse set of candidates or women into an interview process, and unfortunately their class or their gender or whatever may not be present in that interview process. What are some of the tactics that you guys have implemented to really show the power of having women or being a part of that process? Jackie, do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, so it obviously takes a long time to build out a diverse team. It's not something that you can be like, I'm going to go do that today. But, it starts from the top. So leaders need to believe in it. And then the way that you advertise jobs, the words that you use in your job descriptions, people who come into your organization want to know what it's like working there. So the group of people, if it's all men at the time, really have to believe in a level playing field and making sure that they're changing their behaviors, maybe from a boys club to a more inclusive environment. And that's the language they use. So you can bring in training for your folks, because a lot of it is unintentional. Folks don't even realize that they might be, lending some bias towards certain roles, etc. And so really thinking about those things, making everyone aware, and then inviting those things and thinking about who you're trying to attract. So if you are looking for a workforce that happens to be, working parents, right? It could be men or women, and say, okay, we have this opportunity to be more flexible now with technology. And so really evaluating your current practices and saying, do we need to be the way that we are? Do we need to have folks in the office 40 hours a week? Can we do part-time jobs? Can we, whatever it is, to be more flexible to allow more diverse candidates into your organization?
And Kevin, just to add on Jackie, because to her point, I think, she brings a valid point. The other two things that we can do, one is, as an automotive industry, right? So just the advertising and the messaging that we put out, as an automotive group, what does that look like? Some of it is a little antiquated, right? So that's from an automotive, industry standpoint. And then secondly, I think as a dealer group is basically use your diverse population, use your women to advocate in your recruiting and to kind of speak to their successes, to speak to, you can make a beautiful career and be very financially well off in automotive. Let's kind of debunk, the stereotypical ideas on automotive and, it being like not a great place to work. I mean, honestly, I think when I joined Warren Henry over 3 years ago, that was the thought that ran through my head. I came from advertising. We do a really good job of hiring people from non-automotive backgrounds. But I came from advertising, and I remember applying for this job, and I was like, I don't want to work at a car dealership. Like, no. And then I did a little bit of research on Warren Zinn, Larry Zinn, Eric Day, and I was like, all right, I'm going to apply. And then I met them and I was like, this is not a dealership. This is so much more. And I am so grateful that I was able to take that leap of faith and that, I'm not working for a traditional dealership. So I think from an industry standpoint, obviously change the marketing, change the messaging. And as a group yourself, kind of use your women to advocate for more women. Let them talk about the success. And I think through their passion, as you can see, I'm very passionate about the role. You're going to be like, I want to work there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know and tell us a little bit about your the women of Warren Zinn or Warren Henry. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Warren Henry.
We are all women, right? So
yeah.
a really good pool of women at Warren Henry. And we decided, I think it was last year, to start the Women of Warren Henry for exactly that. So what we've done is basically either bring in, we create our own internal events. We create internal training. As a certified coach with IPEC, we've gone through 7 levels of energy and what that looks like. And oftentimes for women and men, it's not gender specific, but we have these different scenarios such as limiting beliefs that will hold me back from applying for that role, Jackie, will hold me back from speaking in a room full of men, so it's a matter of helping our women address these limiting beliefs and these thoughts and additional things to be able to make them successful and empower them to have these difficult conversations with either other leaders, with their bosses, and be able to achieve their growth and development while, impacting change. So for us, it was important as we continue to grow the women in our organization to empower them, right? So it's one thing, we're just going to attract more women and have them here. Then what do we do with them? How do we support them? And I think that goes for women in our organization as our leaders and our employees. So we have the Women of Warren Henry, and it's been great. And it's a personal passion of mine. So we're excited. I'm excited that they said yes.
Excellent. That's great. And it's interesting having Jackie on this call, obviously living on the outside of automotive and in a very competitive market from a technology company perspective. But Jackie, what are some of the things that you and your team have done to really open up the market to attract maybe some of the skills that don't maybe exist in your company today or that you're looking for or that are very difficult to attract? How do you go about doing that?
Sure. And so while the industries are very different, technology has the same type of issues, right? So we're up in the Boston area, and we are a fast growing technology company. So we're in the market always and in a war for talent for software engineers, another industry that is not full of women or diverse candidates. And so we made an initiative a few years ago really on diversifying our organization. And it's been hard work, and we're seeing the fruits of our labor. 2 years later, we're actually seeing our company more diverse. We have more women in technology. But it really was driven from the top. So I think that your leadership needs to be invested in it. It's fully around it's not just talk, right? So for example, our employees go to your website, and Barbara, you had just said that when you were applying for your job, is that you did the research, right? So you can't just say, oh, we're going to hire more women. They're going to research and make sure that this is somewhere I'm going to work. This is what they believe in before they do that. So you do have to, look at your marketing, look at the programs you're running, and make sure that you are fully invested, not just in women, but in your employees, in their career development, in their professional development. And when you actually believe in that and put the programs in place, your employees start talking about it, right? And that's where you get your employer brand in the market. That's where you get employee referrals, and it all starts to run like a machine. So it does take work, it does take programming, and intention. You have to intentionally, put these things in place and not just talk about it. And I think, regardless of your industry, it's a critical piece of what the new workforce is looking for. So millennials are super smart and they're innovative, but they want a company that is mission driven, that has philosophies that resonate with them. They're not going to just go join any organization. And it's really important that, your dealership, your organization believes and resonates with the values.
No, that's great. And I think it's interesting, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on this, is the transformation of the recruiting office, right? So Barbara, you are in the seat today and manage the recruiting component of it. It's not recruiting to post a job and sort through applicants, right? Recruiting needs to be somewhat of a contact sport. It needs to be selling.
This is guerrilla marketing at its best.
Right? It really,
legit.
And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for dealers today, is to really think about recruiting as a sales activity, because then it overlays some of the things that you mentioned around marketing and all of these other components. What are some of the things that either of you have done to really, change the mindset of the recruiting office to less of an admin and more of a sales position?
I think for us at Warren Henry, we have like multiple prongs when it comes to recruiting. It really is about building a relationship, right? So some people might not be ready to leave where they're at, but you're building a relationship, you're selling a story, and and you tie it to research, and you can back that story up and say, we are actually a great place to work. It just kind of, it works itself out. The other thing, specifically, we are grooming talent from within. So to your point, once you're attracting them, you see their growth potential, we're kind of giving back to them. And to Jackie's point, leadership is such a vital role. We launched employee mentorship programs recently, and our employees are still talking about it. Like, they can have a seat next to Larry Zinn or Eric Day or Warren Zinn as a mentor. It could be a BDC agent. He wouldn't have, he or she wouldn't have that direct impact, direct contact with maybe Larry Zinn. But hey, you know what? That's his mentee. And how impressive is that? The fact that our leaders can carve out time to meet with our people, again, it's just speaking volumes to growth and development. So I think for us, it's really building relationships, very guerrilla marketing. So you have to be creative. It's about growing within. We incorporated a technician apprenticeship program in-house at our main facility. Again, technicians is a whole other topic. Let me know. But we started our own school in partnership with Miami-Dade Public Schools, and we're looking to continue to evolve and develop. And technology, to your point, Jackie, we have an affiliate called Dealer Intelligence, and it is literally that. We have our software engineers. They're building we have this amazing platform that is driven with the financials, that we're able to take our leaders, take the financials and add the people to it. And it's just such a beautiful blend that makes for a successful organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree that it's a, recruiting used to be an HR function, and it's really an organizational function. And it's about upholding your brand, especially when people walk into your dealership, right? Like they might want to work there if they're walking in to buy a car. Mm-hmm. And it is built around building an engaged workforce who is excited about what they're doing. And we talk about like discretionary effort all the time. And when employees are motivated by their job, when there's a good fit with how they're driven and what they're doing, that you get their discretionary effort, and they start spending the company's money like it's their own money. They're talking about work at cocktail parties, right? And then they're talking about their dealership, and that's a recruiting process. That's where your employer brand starts, and it just spreads. So it really does come down to like having an engaged workforce that is like so excited about the work that they're doing and how their organization's treating them.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I want to just quickly recap, because both of you had some really powerful things that you've mentioned. But when you think about recruiting and attracting women into your dealership, it's important that the women that you have at your dealership today are involved in that hiring process, right? They're front and center, because whether it be confirmation bias, whatever it is, it's important that somebody that's interviewing at your organization sees that there's other successful women or diverse set of individuals or leaders that they want to be like or that they can relate to. So I think that's a really important thing that I took away from this component is that you got to show, right? You got to show. It's not more, it's less talk, it's more of show me. Here's how we are. And working here, this is kind of the opportunities that you have in it.
Yeah, and more so speaking to the challenges as a woman, right? So as a single mom of 3, me and my ex have 50-50. So there's 2 days a week where my leadership team knows Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm out at 4, I have to get the kids. It's not even a question, right? I'm still available, whatever I need to do, but I can speak to the fact that I know the organization I work for will support me in whatever, if I need to leave early, if I need to telework for the day or whatever that may look like. And again, it is different per role, but for the most part, being flexible and having women speak to that, I think it kind of creates that, it almost gives you permission to be like, all right, these challenges and thoughts and friction points for me as a woman in an automotive group, like maybe I can, there's a way to overcome these. So let me give this a try.
Yeah, no, it's outstanding.
Yeah, and I would imagine that if you're a dealer that doesn't have any women, now we're talking about showcase the women in leadership, and you don't have that, right? So it's like, how do you get started?
Right.
And I think that it's like, take an introspective look at why you want to have women in leadership, and then, make sure that you're ready to have and give a seat at the table to the next person that you hire that might be a woman, and really invest in that. And like we said, put the training in place, make sure that when you're interviewing, that you're just talking about all of your intentions and what you're hoping to bring to the table, and then let that happen.
Yeah. And I think, this is kind of marketing in a sense, but it's important that when you're interviewing, the associate or the potential applicant that will join your dealership understands your operating principles, understands your core values, understands who you are as a dealer. And if that's not clearly defined, or if you haven't trained your managers or your hiring associates that are involved in that process, what those operating principles are, or what those core values are, and how to understand them, right? You're kind of, it's very difficult to overcome that in this competitive marketplace. And it's hard for your hiring managers to know what good looks like. So I think it's important, and Jackie, Barbara, please jump in on this, but I think it's important that as you begin to train your team to develop women or a diverse set of individuals or applicants, it's also, how do you identify good and how do you attract good into the business? Thoughts on that?
Jackie, you can kick us off if you want.
Sure. So I think that one is like you said, Kevin, have a good understanding of your operating values, right? And being able to articulate that. And then really understand, regardless of the role in the organization, but what are you setting that person to do, and what are the metrics in which you're going to measure them by, and then being able to look for that in candidates and articulate that. And that's where, not to tout PI, but that's where PI and the predictive index really bring value into understanding job and job fit and your candidate. And even your employees, inspiring them further after that.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Just kind of expanding on Jackie, right? So identifying those core values, and then it really is about, like, you have a blueprint. We all do, from an organizational standpoint. So it's identifying those top performers and assessing, to Jackie's point, assessing what do they do really well, what strengths do they have, and what weaknesses. And then, as we all know, we all have the weaknesses, but how are these leaders and individuals kind of developing their weaknesses? Is it an added support team? Is it additional training? So again, I think, to Jackie's point, it's bringing the organizational core values, then it's our goals and initiatives, and then it's the people, and figuring out how they all overlap. And again, to your point, predictive index, or whatever system or training we use, it's about kind of identifying that blueprint and just replicating it, right, for success.
And it's interesting, it's this buy versus build mentality. And Barbara, you probably have a lot more experience in the dealership world than I do in this, but a lot of our dealer partners prefer to buy talent than build it. And the numbers speak for themselves, right? we have 7% in the industry of women are leaders, but 98% of women that start in a sales consultant position turn over within the first year. And so if the learning path or the career path for leadership positions in a dealership starts as a sales consultant, we're losing 98% of our future leaders. And so it needs to adjust, and it goes to this, it's very expensive to buy talent in the marketplace. And by investing in building, it's super important. And more importantly, it allows you to create this message and allows you to create this synergy amongst your associates that allows you to really enhance your employer brand, to Jackie's language, and really start to leverage what you're building to attract individuals into that. And I think, Barbara, your concept of blueprint, and Jackie, leveraging predictive index to really understand these operating principles. But then more importantly, not only when you're hiring, if you use these operating principles when you're hiring, you now understand potentially where this individual could have some challenges or friction when they enter the role, so you can support them more effectively, right? And so I think just being really intentional around hiring and how you develop these associates is important and critical, and it's going to lead to the success.
Yeah, and I think one more thing, Kevin, because obviously, there is a lot of women in administrative roles like HR, recruiting, and all of that. So I think it's also having the confidence to be able to, kind of speak with that hiring manager per se and say, listen, it might take us a little bit longer, but we will get the right person. So I think, we have to also be confident enough in saying we're going to go through this process, and it's succeeded for it's been a succession for us, right? So it's going to take us a little bit longer, but we're going to be more specific and strategic about our hiring versus just churning, right? And just having people come in and out of the door. So I think when you get your leadership team, your departmental managers on board to know that there's kind of science behind it a little bit, right? So it's strategic. So we will get you the right people in partnership with, with obviously these leaders and managers, but it might take us a little bit. So I know you want to fill, a head count, but that's not the way we're attracting the right people and retaining them, to your point, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, I'm sure all dealers are worried about their bottom line. And if your turnover is expensive, it's expensive on the people that remain in the business. It's expensive from just a training perspective, having roles unfilled. And we call that a people tax. And if you're not looking at the people tax in the context of your financials, you're not really looking at your whole forecast. It's so expensive. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy to fix, but if you invest that people tax in training and developing, you're fixing the problem, and you're changing that 98% turnover into a development program where you're getting the benefits of someone who's trained and understands your organization and your operating values and all of the other things that you can build within your organization.
That's right. And I think what's interesting is turnover isn't a bad thing if you control it, right? Right. Turnover isn't a bad thing if you control it. But today, I don't think we're controlling it, right? I think it's kind of outside of our scope. And so how do you really build processes, strategies to understand that tax and make sure that you reduce it, and especially don't lose the people you don't want to lose, right? Like that, when you don't control it, there's people that are leaving that could have a huge amount of opportunity to really add value to your business.
Yeah, and to add one other thing to just the challenges of retaining talent with COVID, there's many employers that now are just straight working from home. So as a dealer group, that's another impact for us. Like, we've had a handful, maybe not too many, maybe like one or two that have left just because they found something else just to work permanently, at home. Yeah. And maybe based on their role, that wasn't a functionality. So again, I know Jackie had mentioned this in the past, it's identifying all of your roles and being able to pivot, right? So obviously if working remote is the thing, then maybe we can make that happen. I mean, listen, we've had successful women in different roles. One specifically that comes to mind, she was a top performer as a sales consultant, and she was a single mom, and she wasn't here every single day, 7 days a week. She was still working, and she was crushing it. So again, it's being able to have our general managers, our service directors, our leadership, just being open to, the fact that I might not physically be here for 60 hours a week doesn't mean I'm not working, right? So it's a beautiful blend, and it's just, we also have to be, well versed on, the impact that COVID has had, to the negative, but it's also had a lot of positive, just kind of enhancing the buying experience and just electrification and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think we just have to be mindful of those different things and supporting.
And I think that's a great transition into the dealership of the future, right? And this digital transformation, this digital buying experience, a consumer first mindset, which we've always had, but it's a different experience. And the skills needed to deliver on the digital side, I imagine, are different. What are your thoughts on that, Jackie and Barbara?
Yeah, I mean, I will talk just from a consumer perspective that, and I feel like this is the same in the housing market, but is now everyone wants to find everything online, right? So you can go to a car dealer and look at their inventory for a used car, a new car, and kind of look at it, from a video perspective, and really say, I'm going to go to the dealer and look at this specific car, right? Or I want to talk to someone first and just ask, questions I don't know. And your buying experience is probably very limited in person, and some maybe don't even buy them in person. I don't know. But if you're not like thinking about the new way of that people are consuming products across the board and adjusting your business, and just the kind of saying like, well, we're just going to stay 9 to 5 and 40 hours a week. This is when people shop. This is how we want. And, you're going to fall behind. And the organizations that are pivoting and are shifting, they're just going to stand out and distance themselves.
Yeah. I think from a customer lens, right? We make all of our decisions from a customer lens. What does this customer experience look like? And what does best look like, best in class? What are we doing today and where do we want to go? For us with COVID, obviously we were able to successfully support our customers in whichever way they wanted to be, to purchase a vehicle or to even service their vehicle. So if it was like, hey, I don't want to come, I don't feel comfortable with it, great. We'll pick up your vehicle from a service standpoint. We'll bring you a loaner. We'll keep you up to date. Same thing from a buying experience. So I think it's being able to be fluid to the business needs and also to the customer, right? At the end of the day, you're servicing them. And the other component that I think we do really well is, yes, we are selling a product or a service, but we also want our customers to experience the brands, right? So, we've been able to continuously enhance our events for our customers, make it about a family because, Warren and Larry and Eric are all about, being family owned and we expand that to our customers. So I think that's what's also made us really successful. It's the overall customer service, experience, and it is just that their processes and experiencing this amazing thing that we have.
Yeah, and I'm interested, Barbara and Jackie, in your thoughts. Is there's such a big role for people strategy in this transformation, right? A lot of our dealer partners, and Barbara, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, is a lot of our dealer partners are thinking about the digital retail environment. They're thinking about the technologies from the customer lens. They're thinking about processes, single point of contact, whatever, any of the buzzwords that are out there. But I haven't had a lot of conversations around, well, how do we actually get our people to deliver this model, right? How do we get what skills do we need? So how are you thinking about that? And again, I know we have some time, but it's starting to sneak up on us.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak a little bit about that. I think for us, it's really getting pretty basic with it. It's mapping out your entire customer experience. I mean, we've done this well, and we're continuing to expand on it. So it's understanding from A to Z, all of the different points, all of the friction points. It's getting your employees to weigh in on the process as well, right? They're doing the day-to-day. So they are pretty good. They know what needs to be improved and what doesn't. And then I think it's giving them the training, the resources, and if there's different areas that we can't necessarily support, it's advocating it, right? From an industry standpoint, from a regulation standpoint, with e-signing, whatever it is, it's just being able to be very much forward in that process to get them the resources and tools and support them and get their buy-in, again. And I think all of these things, to Jackie's point, start from the top, but you also involve everyone along the way. So, they're just on board.
That's awesome. And I know, Jackie, your team over at PI, you guys have created a framework, a talent optimization framework that really speaks to, taking a business objective and delivering that to result Could you walk us through kind of that framework, that
Sure.
talent optimization framework?
Sure. So the framework is really the full spectrum of business strategy all the way to delivering results. And so if you have your business strategy, so every president, CEO, CFO, they have their business strategy. And this is like a great thing that you're thinking about, like, okay, we're going to transform to a more digital platform or new customer experience by, over the next 12 years. And these are the results we want to achieve. And so in the middle of that, and now if you want to pull up the framework, in the middle of that is the talent strategy. And so with the talent strategy, you start with designing your team, right? So you're looking at, okay, this is our business strategy. We're going to design the team. And so who's on the team? Who can we pull in? Who do we have to hire, right? And then you say, okay, now that we've hired them, or now we're going to go hire those people that aren't on the team, we're going to inspire them to perform. So these are the things that we need to do to retain them. And then we're going to continually diagnose that. We're going to look at the engagement over time and say, okay, we're changing our business, we're pivoting our strategy, or we're building processes. How are our employees feeling? And this is where you get those, best places to work awards, because you're looking at your talent, you're tying it to results, and you're ensuring that people are inspired by the work that they're doing, that their relationships with their managers are working, and you're continually building on that. So even, Barbara, I'm sure your best place to work, but it evolves, right? It's not one and done. Like, oh, we got the award, let's go. It's continual work, and you do that, and then you achieve your results, right? And so in the middle of your strategy and your results is the people who are performing the work. And there is a specific, framework for how to approach talent, how to look at your headcount, especially during a transformation, going from maybe, more in person to a digital transformation of the talent that you're going to need. And if you don't plan for that, it's really hard to make those changes. There we go.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. And so, just to recap, Jackie, if you give us a quick overview of it.
Yep.
So there's the business strategy, and then it's the business results. That's what most people think about, right? It's what are we going, and then what are the results that we want to achieve? And I think the survey that Predictive Index put out, about 88% of companies that were surveyed missed this middle part, right? What are the roles how do we design the job to achieve these business results, layering in the strategy that we have to understand? How do we measure if we have any gaps on our team today? How do we backfill or train or develop those gaps from a hiring perspective? And then how do we ensure that everyone stays motivated and how everyone's engaged in the process? And then are we doing this well, right? Are we pulling the right levers? And then if we do this consistently, we should be the race to achieve results, the friction to achieve results should be minimal. We should be able to do that consistently. And, I'll share with you just a quick example, Barbara and Jackie, that, we've had this conversation around with a team that we actually work with, that we've implemented this framework, and they're going through somewhat of a digital transformation. And we're going to be able to, we'll be able to show you kind of what this looks like. So if you notice, and most of our team is plotted up to the top right-hand quadrant, right, or to the right side of this framework. And what this means is that these are individuals that are very focused, when we think about our digital strategy that this dealership was implementing, are very focused on the customer, right, the external point of view. And I think when you look at this, what do we see, right? We see a big gap in documentation, process, slowing down, right? I always like to use this as, this is the people that measure twice and cut once type of approach. And that doesn't really exist for this team. So it's interesting that when we see this, we can start to understand, where are we going to have some gaps in our strategy? Where are we going to potentially have some friction? And then to Jackie and Barbara's point, this is a great opportunity, if we understand our operating principles and we understand what we need to be looking for us to go out and guerrilla market specific profiles to help us achieve our results.
Yeah, and I'll add to that Kevin, is that so here you see by the double purple line that your strategy is more towards process and precision. So you obviously, there's a gap there, so your next hire might be in that quadrant. But now you have the information to say, I have someone who operates differently than the rest of the team. And if you're not aware of that, and helping those people work together, the one different person might find themselves on an island. And so you have the power of understanding how people work and having them work better together.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie, and we talked about this before, and Kevin, you and I have as well. It's really about, to Jackie's point, understanding the people. And it's such a powerful tool when you're able to support your leaders and your departmental managers, because you know what it takes for them to kind of understand or to kind of partner with you to get these initiatives off the ground, to impact the bottom line. So again, we all map out in different areas of this, of this chart. But with that, just with knowing what kind of drives someone, you're able to better support them in their role, which at the end of the day is a win-win for the organization.
Yeah, that's right on. And I think tying that back to attracting women into the industry, a diverse skill set into the industry, is if we're having such high turnover, 98% of turnover in a key position within our organization, some of that ties back to is these women in these dealerships aren't bad dealerships or aren't bad women. It's just they're not effectively communicating, right? There's a disconnect between expectations and understanding. And and realizing what these individuals' natural drives are and how that aligns to these operating principles, all of this stuff is critical to really making a dent into those turnover numbers.
Absolutely.
Well, I have learned so much today. I am very grateful to you, Barbara and Jackie, for all of the insights that you provided. My big takeaway today is guerrilla marketing for recruiting, right? Like it's super important, and it's really focusing on, you have to go get the talent, and you have to be intentional, to use Jackie's word, on the type of people you want to bring into the organization. And to do that, you need to layer in operating principles. You need to layer in best practices. You need to put your women and the diverse candidates in front of the applicants that you're trying to improve. And then more importantly, you need to build them, right? From within, and have programming, whether it's Warren Henry or the Women of Warren Henry or other programs of that nature, to really keep them there is going to be critical. Well, thank you so much. Barbara and Jackie, if any of our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, would it be okay if they reach out to you via LinkedIn?
That's perfect.
Absolutely. Love that.
Awesome. So we'll provide the link in the body of this format, so you can have a link to them. And if any of the listeners are interested in learning more about JM&A's Dealer Talent Services and how we can support you in some of your talent initiatives, please feel free to reach out to me or your JM&A rep. Thank you again for such a great conversations. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to continuing the discussion and seeing results and how we continue to drive women into our fantastic industry. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.